Well, hello then, I do hope you're all well. Now, this is Labour MP Rushanara Ali, and this is an absolute peach of a video. To say she absolutely proper got under our fishy Rishi's skin is an understatement. Now, you had Angela Eagle poking fun about this vote of no confidence and holes in the spring statement that he did, and you had Siobhain McDonagh not taking any of his waffle and trying to eat into a time. Now, Rushanara Ali, she decided to poke holes into the coincidence of this spring statement coming out the day after the Sue Gray report, and to say she got under her skin is an understatement. Enjoy.
It's by the bell from Dame Angela. Chancellor, I wanted to talk to you about the interaction between your announcement and the Ofgem cap and the OBR. When you came to this, when you gave evidence last after the spring statement, you said it's very difficult to sit here today and speculate on what will happen to energy prices and therefore the biggest impact on living standards in the autumn. Let's wait until we get there and then we can decide on the most appropriate course of action. Obviously, it's been 2 months. It has only been 2 months. What made you change your mind, and was it because of political pressure?
No, the way the price cap works, there's an observation window which runs from February to August from memory, right? Actually, until you are through that observation window, you don't know what the price cap is going to be. That's how it's calculated. So whilst people might have estimates and all the rest of it back in February, what you don't have is any actual data that informs how the price cap works. So, we are now about 2/3 of the way through that observation window. So the data that actually will set the price cap, we have a lot more of it in, and back then we had close to zero of it.
There was no political pressure on Mr. Brearley to provide a rough forward estimate for the price cap, and there was no political consideration or pressure.
We of course are in a constant dialogue with Ofgem on a weekly basis to get constant estimates, as I have been throughout the observation window. I'm always asking for estimates of what the price cap might be towards the autumn, and obviously the further along you go through the observation window, the more confidence you have in that estimate being a reflection of what will actually happen. That's just it's not a perfect estimate now because there's still a period to run. But obviously, the more that you've got behind you, the more confidence you can have in what the final estimate is. But it is just that. It is still, even now, an estimate. But as I said, about 2/3 of the actual data required is I believe, now formally already in our hands.
And the week in which you made that announcement, people are very sceptical about the fact that it came out. Siobhain raised it earlier. It came out the day after the Sue Gray report. Wouldn't it have been more orderly to have actually had an OBR assessment and to make that announcement earlier on during the spring statement rather than during that time?
I love to see a Tory squirm. Oh, he's squirming, absolutely. He looks well uncomfortable, doesn't he?
2 months later, and in the week when it was clearly an attempt to divert attention from law breaking by the Prime Minister.
The spring statement forecasts all closed in the beginning of March. As I said, the observation window at that point had barely opened for the autumn price cap. So anything that you did then had the potential to be quite wrongly sized. So just not. I mean, you could have done something, and you wouldn't have had confidence that it would be the right thing to do because you didn't know what was going to happen to energy bills. So actually, you now have had you've now had more of the time that you need, February, March, April, May, right? That you've got 4 of the 6 months of the observation window roughly behind you now. So that data is in, and that means you can have a much more informed sense of what's going to happen to energy bills. That's why you can't do it. And with regard to OBR,
you had indicated that you'd look at it later on in the autumn.
I had just said.
What changed your mind?
I think I've always said I wanted more clarity around the price.
You got clarity in that week. You seem to you seem to have clarity to make an announcement in a week when the Prime Minister was in trouble, and you made an announcement the day after
I think it's more what I've always said. I want to strike the right balance between providing reassurance to people, because I know that there's a lot of anxiety about this, and many people have been saying, actually be good to know what's coming, and balancing that with waiting to have enough information to make sure that what we did was more likely than not to be appropriately sized. I mean, that's a straightforward trade-off. There's sort of no perfect way to trade those things off. And again, doing it in Parliament, so I could answer yours and others' questions.
After the Sue Gray report. Yeah.
I guess look, maybe we'd have preferred it to wait longer, but that would have meant people
done it earlier,
and then it could well have been wrongly sized.
Oh, it's the Tom Purse glove strop here now. Oh, look at him. He's getting all serious now. You're under the cosh, feeling the pressure.
Earlier, even. Anyway, there was no political pressure on Mr. Brearley. You've had regular conversations with Ofgem, but no political pressure.
I think the team are in touch with Ofgem on a very regular basis, and we constantly I'm asking for updates on what the price cap is likely to be in the autumn. Right, we track that on a very regular basis.
Are you concerned that you're announcing large fiscal measures outside of the budget or spring statement, which means that they're announced without us seeing the impact on the wider economy and without independent costings analysis from the OBR? And we understand why during the pandemic things needed to happen in a different way, but isn't that of concern, that the way you're making these announcements?
I mean, no, I think the circumstances are reasonably exceptional given the scale of the challenge that we're seeing. That it meant that it was the right.
Prime Minister was in a lot of trouble, and you need to come up with the rest of the
thing to do. And I think the committee will know, obviously, that the way that the OBR forecasting process works, it doesn't particularly lend itself to moving at speed. It is a process that takes something like a dozen weeks in general from start to finish. So actually it doesn't lend itself to more rapid policy and decision making.
This announcement at this point lent itself to nothing, which is not not a particularly helpful way to make policy. There's no opportunity to have any assessment. So
well, I think, look, I mean, there are always independent think tanks and other bodies who have provided their assessment.
But the OBR has a particular, with respect, Chancellor, the OBR has a particular function. We have a role to scrutinise you and what you do. You are leaving Parliament in a position, and this committee in a position, and it's not first, in a position where we don't have that independent assessment, and I don't think that's acceptable.
Sounds familiar. Remember Anthony McDonagh with Anne-Marie Trevelyan? All sounds very, very familiar.
Even if you're doing, of course I welcome the announcement and the support that's being provided. That's not the point here. The point is about how government conducts its business, and it speaks to a wider problem in the way that this government, your government, has been operating, where it's playing fast and loose with big decisions that need proper consideration and proper scrutiny, and it's not happening. And what's clear is in the week that you made that announcement, the day after the Sue Gray report, this was a political decision, not an economic decision, with the opportunity for us to have the evidence to...
I think it's just a trade-off, right? If you think it would have been better for the country and people to have waited 12 weeks to have that, then so be it. I just disagree with that.
It's not beyond the realm.
Because I think...
He's having a full-on meltdown now, isn't he? Look at his face. Shifting about. He's well uncomfortable. Nobody's fooled Rishi.
And your talents to have been able to make this announcement during the spring statement, or in a more orderly way, rather than use a major announcement to divert attention from the Prime Minister's law breaking. That's what was really going on, wasn't it, Chancellor? And isn't that irresponsible for somebody who has got a big, important job to play? And you were credited for the work you did during the pandemic, and here you are, falling into the trap of trying to save the Prime Minister by making an announcement the day after the Sue Gray report to take that story off the headlines.
We're having the same conversation again and again. I took the judgment, rightly I believe, not to do this at the spring statement because no one had any real sense of what would happen to energy bills in the autumn. because it's not physically
Look at the shifty eyes. Not making eye contact and them looking away. Very shifty.
possible to do so because you were only weeks into a 6-month observation window. So anything you did at that point would have been quite speculative. And as you say, if these are big decisions, it's important we get them right. Doing them on an entirely speculative basis, I don't think would have been the appropriate thing to do. So then it's a judgment call about, or when do you have enough information for it to be an informed judgment, early enough to provide reassurance to people, which is something that lots of people, including I think the Labour Party, were calling for. And I think waiting another 12 weeks, or however long it would have taken, was probably not the right balance.
Somebody of your gravitas and talents shouldn't have fallen into the trap of trying to take part in Operation Save Big Dog, or whatever that phrase is that people in the Conservative Party have used to save the Prime Minister from law breaking. I think we expect better from you, and you shouldn't be dragged into his mess, frankly.
I'm glad that you said you welcome the measures, and I'm glad that it seemed that the main concern was around the timing as around or opposed to the substance.
Right.
And the substance of the announcement, which is welcome to hear.
Julie now, because we
Do you know what I loved the way about that? This was a cool, calm demeanour. She wasn't going to take any of his nonsense. Absolutely brilliant. That was a treat to behold. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed it, and till the next time I shall bid you farewell and take care.